safety now is a really big push. Right now, the largest goal is 0. No lost time, no incidents of any kind. This quarry out here, 2 years ago, we achieved 0. We had no incidents at all. No one left here with a cut on their finger and had to go to the doctor. I mean, quarrying is a very dangerous business. You have to pay attention to what you're doing. So, yeah, that's a big push right now. Safety is not just, you know, it's the bottom line right now. Anybody, we just had a meeting with my boss's boss came out, and he basically laid it out on the line of, if any of you feel you are doing anything unsafe, stop. Don't do it. If you can't get an answer from your foreman, you go to his boss. If you can't get an answer from him, you call me. So it's no longer just talk, it's safety. And which brings us to this picture. There are people down there. I mean, they're down there in the stone, poking things up, standing on the rocks. I mean, this is how it used to. And probably you consider that at the time, this was probably high technology for them. But that's not allowed anymore. So, like I said, the original the top layer was high in calcium. It was used for flux stone steel mills and the agricultural lime. This is just another one of those pictures of that top layer. So if you look out, so you drive out to the cemetery and you look out. The cemetery layer was the original layer of the peninsula back in that day. It was 27 feet. They took that off. For some reason, back in, millions of years ago, something happened that made that top layer a little bit different. It was very high in calcium, made it perfect for flux stone. I went to a steel mill once, or another quarry that we had, and they quarry both layers out now. They take the top layer out and they send that to the steel mills, and then they quarry down below for the aggregate, for the construction materials. It is so critical to have that so much different that when they go from the bottom layer back up to the steel layer, they have to go through that entire plant, hose everything out, clean every chute, get rid of it all. Because if they don't, and they send that to the steel mills, the steel guys know it right off the bat, and they'll say, no, this is the way. So there's some slight difference in between that top layer and the bottom layer that makes it so much different for use in flux stone. Another one of those oldie pictures. I mean, you still look at these cars, it's amazing. So that picture in front, that is showing the final product coming out of the process plant. That is what is going to the steel mills. That's slightly crushed down, very small product. That's what they're sending to the steel mills right there. If you look back behind there, all the smokestacks, yeah, that's an old kiln. They used to take that, they would put it in there, they would fire the cars, they would actually throw heat at the side of the cars and burn that stuff down and make it powdered lime. So, also, because we had 1,100 people working there, you had those old pictures of, gee, this isn't safe. They built their own hospital, which is still down there. I mean, they had all kinds of accidents, fall, broken bones, head injuries, flying debris, yes. All kinds of things were happening down there. So the building is still there, yes, we've been asked, are you going to redo that? Well, they built this building, if you look at the very top of it, they built it with a 4-foot wall around the top of a flat roof, which we have been having, when the standard slag had that as an office, it was impossible to try and keep it from leaking. And it's been deteriorating ever since. So yeah, the building's still there, but I haven't been in it for quite a while. I'm pretty sure it's probably not in very good shape. But this is one of the original train track, the roots of things. You can see the roots of everything that came down. So you've got this one here is actually the inner movement. This is the one that came out and went and continued on and went out to Bay Point. This is where you went out, you could actually catch the ferry to Cedar Point, on the end of Bay Point, to that one there. This is the original roundhouse, or the train station that was there. This was the car right across from where Mutaks used to be. You had another barn that used to be there, but you can just see all the plants and stuff that was all there back in the old days. It was kind of a thing. You had the porter crusher, the machine shop, kilns, scale house, ash pit, machine shop. I mean, it was a very, very busy place. So imagine back in 1927, and you've got 1,100 people working out there. You've got all this going on. You've got the orchards still up there. You've got stone coming here, going in and out. You've got the fish market down there, the old, right now it's the bed and breakfast down there. That used to be the fish place. So all this was going back and forth and happening back in that day. It was probably like 4th of July down there, traffic-wise, every day. So many people and things going on all down through there. This is the open rail car. So if you look at, so you got the hospital is located down there. You've got the train station on that one side. So the track would be going straight down through those telephone poles out to where the docks. Back in the 1920s, they built the loading dock, which was state-of-the-art at that time. And that's where the freighters would pull in back then. This is really pretty. I'd like to have one of these. So the name drop. My advisor, Charles. Charles is my great uncle. So he was a locomotive engineer. He retired at the age of 73. This is one of the ones that he drove. This is one of the shade cars. They were really pretty. I'd like one of those.
Are there any left?
No. So, okay, so when I first started there 40 years ago was the last year that stone got sent out of here on rail. We had one big car, which was the old 51, and it got dismantled, taken down. We had another small one. We did have one of the small shade cars there in the roundhouse at that time. It got sent out, and the last thing I heard was that it is pulling cars up and down a mountain in Kentucky doing tours. So, that was a long time ago. So, Crusher B, 1922, Kelly's Island Alignment Transport. So originally we had Crusher A, Crusher B, Crusher C. Crusher C, if you remember, if you've ever, so how many people have gone out to the old crusher in the corner? Yeah. That was Crusher C. So Crusher B would have been like a mile that way from there. It was built, it was the largest stone crushing plant in the world at that time. It was huge. Here's another picture of it being a symbol. So this crusher actually, when Stanislav bought the place and moved it up to the top, this crusher is still there up in the ground, right there by Alexander Pike. They took all this up and put it back in that place there. That's still there. But as you can see, the construction of this, I think this is kind of a wrong heading on here. Crusher should be down in the lower building, screening building should be the top one. So the crusher, it went down another 65 feet into the ground. And that's where the trains would come up and they would dump their stone down into there. And it would go up into the screening buildings, and that's what we sorted out and go back into the process plant up there on top of the hill. My dad tells me stories of, so they would cut the cartilage up on top of the hill. It would slowly roll down the hill, and somebody would stand there in the crusher, and he had this big oak 4x4, and as the car came down, you would time it just right to tip the car up into the crusher. That's another one of those things. Not allowed. So, they built in the 1920s, actually late 30s, or they built an enclosed dock. It was all the way out to the end. We used to go out there as kids all the time and go fishing in the grade. And my dad would take us out there. We would go perch fishing when we were little. But you can see back in those days, it was a rig on the end. It could load a boat here, and another boat would pull in, load on this side. We don't do that anymore. We haven't really dredged the other side. So you really only see a boat pulling into one side nowadays. And you'll have to just sit out there and wait. So it was also, I keep telling you stories. It was also the first to, did you ever do it? Jump off the dock? It was always a challenge to see who could walk out there and crawl up on top of that raised structure and jump into the water. I never did it either. But I heard stories.
How many feet down when you did
20 feet.
that? 20 feet.
Yeah. So who did that? Nobody's going to fess up to it, are you?
Tom Bird did it.
Tom Bird did it. So originally, most of the stone was moved that was loaded into rail cars. And eventually, they started loading it into trucks, as you can see there. And has big steam shovel loaders. So originally, it was a lot of, most of the shovels that were down there in the pit were located on rail tracks, and they would pull it right up to where the stone was shot. But originally, eventually they went to the steam shovel loaders. Eventually they went to what was called electric shovels. There was these big electric cables running all through the quarry, and they would just follow the steam shovels around. They were all DH, big loaders, big shovel loaders. Like that one. Here goes another story. I can remember back in the old days when I was little, Dad was running one of these on second shift. And we would go out there. If you look at this, the way the stone is kind of laid down when they blasted, it really didn't blow it out. You could actually walk down that pile of rubble through there. We would go out as a family group. Mom would take a couple of, 2 or 3 of the kids out there, and we would take Dad his supper on second shift, and he would let us sit there in the machine. So yeah, it's kind of in me. Just a little information about ship iron, 80-pound bags, so it's part of the agricultural line, 1,000 bags per boxcar. This is one of the old buildings. Yeah, the white powder back in that day, it was just tremendous. It would just dust everything, the whole, yeah, I know, you get dust now, but back in that day, it was, you had a lot more dust. But then again, everybody in the peninsula was employed in the quarry, so. So, when Standard Slag bought the place, and so, there's kind of a gap in between us. So Kelly's Island Line and Transport owned it until about the 50s. Chemstone Corporation took it over. But with that, the lower layer, the upper layer being gone, they did the pit. They started down where we are right now. They operated it for a little while, but then in 1962, Standard Slag Company come in. They were a very large company. They owned numerous facilities throughout Ohio and Pennsylvania, and they started that's considered a state-of-the-art plant that they built at that time. So right there next to Alexander Pike, that line you see is where they took Crusher D and they moved it up to there and put it right there. So that would be, they would truck stuff up, bring it to here. The crusher was located right here. It would go in, feed the stacker, which built a big stockpile, and that would feed this whole plant, which is those stacking galleys. So in 1962, those galleys, still there now. When those were built, and it was loaded out to the dock. Oh, and there's a boat coming.
Does everybody know what Alexander Pike is? Where that is? Okay.
Oh, so this is one of the Crusher Ds. So this is what Crusher D looked like when it was eventually built and constructed. They took the whole thing down ground level back in the 60s. We just recently quarried around this, and we said, no, we can't leave an island right there, so we have to take that out. We bought in an outside contractor. He came in with this huge claw and started pulling stuff up out of the ground to get this out. It was just so much metal coming up out of there, what they left behind. If you go to the office and you drive in there, you look over, there's this gear wheel there about that big around. It is one of the gear wheels that was used for the bucket elevator that would bring stone back up out of the crusher and up to the screening plant. That's kind of the only thing that did. We refilled just truckloads of stuff in an attempt to get rid of that, so we had kind of quarry around it. Oh, and this is back to Standard Slag. Like I said, this is a state-of-the-art process plant. So on the one side, you could make out washed 4-inch, washed 2-inch product. On the other side would go out a washed 1-inch and 1/2-inch product. Sand would go all the way up that way to a stacker and an eagle screw over on there. You could also, you could not make the 4-inch and 2-inch if you wanted. All you do is change the chute, do this stuff. You could not wash the 1-inch or the 1/2-inch. You could put it out there dry. You could eventually load it back on a boat, send it back to the plant. There was so many varieties of this plant. This was there when I first went there, and I would walk up into this plant and just kind of stand there and look around and go, where's everything gone? It was like 10 screen sets and chutes everywhere. And there was a Williams crusher down here making noises, and a gyratory crusher up there making noises. It was just a very confusing plant. But that's, at the time Standard Slag built this, it was considered state of the art. So, in 1989, Lafarge, North American company, they purchased Standard, actually they purchased all Standard Slate Company. Marblehead came with it. They did a $12.5 million project to rebuild this plant. Pretty much, they did everything new. The stacking galleys that are up there that you still see sitting there by the highway, that is about the only thing that's left from the old Standard Slate days. Everything else from the primary all the way up out to the boat loading is brand new from Lafarge. Lafarge also has just recently completed a merger with Holcomb. We are now Lafarge Holcomb. Lafarge is a very big worldwide company. Holcomb is a very big worldwide company. Now we are a really big worldwide company. We are in 80 countries. We employ nearly 50,000 people worldwide. We are the world's business leader in construction materials, cement, concrete, asphalt, and aggregates. Aggregates is what crushed stone products, what we do out here in Marblehead. So, if you look back in the old days, this is one of the cover docks.